Welcome to STEPS, a staff training program run by the Office of Graduate Research at Flinders University. Hello, my name is Tara Brabazon and I'm the Dean of Graduate Research at Flinders University, and welcome to our STEP session, How to Manage Student Perfectionism. This can be a profound problem for our students, and it is a great blockage to completion. The theoretical and empirical work on perfectionism emerges from philosophy and psychology, and they use very different modes of thinking about this term, about this behaviour, about this issue, and those differences are quite productive and instructive. The literature confirms that perfectionism is increasingly a reported problem inside higher degree programs. The desire to reach the unreachable, to construct an expectation that may be impossible, and can be disappointed in that capacity to reach that impossible goal is really the increasing problem that we're seeing in PhD programs. But what makes perfectionism so challenging is not really the creation of impossible expectations, but the harsh treatment and the self-talk that results from not reaching that imagined standard. And this process is often described as self-criticism. As per the Thomas Curran and Andrew Hill study of perfectionism across generations, their study of 40,000 American, British and Canadian college students between 1989 and 2016 revealed not only a 33% increase in perfectionism since 1989, but three distinct modes of perfectionism. And they are self-oriented perfectionism, socially prescribed perfectionism, and other-oriented perfectionism. Self-oriented perfectionism is the irrational imperative to be perfect that creates unrealistic expectations, and these students are highly critical of themselves. Socially prescribed perfectionism is the belief that their social circle is overly demanding and that their social circle judges them harshly, so they must display perfectionism to gain a social group's approval and avoid rejection. Other-oriented perfectionism refers to those who construct unrealistic standards for the people around them and evaluate others critically. So I'd like to call this, if you will, the social media model of perfectionism, #judging you. So the type of perfectionism exhibited is constructed via where the person receives their self-worth. So self-oriented perfectionists gain self-worth through achievement. Socially prescribed perfectionists gain their self-worth when others approve of them, and other-oriented perfectionists feel self-worth when others respect and admire them. So from this research, perfectionism is created through genetic factors, as revealed in, of course, the famous twin studies, but also social processes. So family environments increase the tendency for perfectionism. So once more, we can, of course, clearly blame our mothers for everything, only half joking, but gender is, interestingly, not a mitigating variable. So men and women exhibit perfectionism in equal measure. The increase in the last 30 years can be explained by Harvard's professor of political philosophy, Michael Sandel. He argued that as the movement from the market economy to the market society emerged, he argues this means that competition has now saturated all areas of our lives. So education, yes, but likes on Facebook, number of friends and colleagues and followers on Twitter, your GPA. So everything is given a metric. So we sort, shift and rank almost every area of our lives. So this results in reinforcing the lie of meritocracy. Meritocracy remains a nonsensical ideology that if we all just work hard enough, we're going to make it. So therefore, by this model, if you don't make it, it means, you've guessed it, you haven't worked hard enough. So for perfectionists, they've created this impossible ideal and didn't make it. So therefore, they didn't work hard enough by the meritocratic model, and the result is shame, self-doubt, and self-blame. This creates a disoriented self and focuses on the flaws, the deficiencies, the inadequacies, and also hypersensitivity to criticism and failure. So you can see the challenge that this little witch's brew of perfectionism can create for PhD students. So where we're at, impossible standards, competing with other PhD students, feeling like a failure, and then a supervisor tries to help you by offering feedback, and then the student reads the feedback as a proof of failure. So, a PhD student, of course, will never present the perfect research project, there will never be a faultless candidature, and it is the worst research that a student will ever do. It's not their best. And academic life is really based on so much nastiness, aggression, competitiveness. Now, people like me, I'm sure just like you as well, we sort of laugh it off. So you don't like me? Oh, you don't like my work. So sad. And what's your name again? But if you are reliant on other people's views to create your sense of self and self-worth, then we're really heading into troubled waters. And this is serious and very serious, because what occurs is perfectionism results in a disordered self, and shame and guilt emerge, depression and anxiety emerge, and yes, of course, perfectionism is implicated in suicide. This is increasingly worrying, and when I'm asked why the mental health issue is increasing in PhD students, what can we do? What can we do as a community of scholars, of peers, of friends? Well, firstly, of course, I always say seek out a mental health professional. And there are, I think, techniques that talk therapy can enable in terms of change. But there are also 5 strategies I use that are mantras, really, when I'm trying to help a student. And this may help you and all of us cut through this issue for our students. So my first strategy is to remind students that failure is a gift. Now, I know this seems beyond the pale for some students, but failure is not a weakness, it is a gift. It allows all of us to improve. So failure is not a sign of weakness or a lack of ability, it is a life trial, a pilot study, if you will, to move to a better point and stage in our lives. Secondly, I try to block competition with others, particularly between students. And I know, again, this seems antithetical in our ruthless, pretty nasty times, but one of the reasons I think that I have a pretty great laugh and I have a lot of joy and a lot of laughter in my life is I don't compete with anyone. And as I always say, success is not a finite resource. I wish everyone well. I do my stuff, my research, my teaching, my life on my terms, and I'm not hugely interested in what other people think. And I have no interest in competing with anyone. And because I follow my own drummer, and indeed I am my own rhythm, that stops the competition. So that could be a model for students as well. 3, I try and make sure that students show some compassion to themselves, because life is hard. Life with a PhD is even harder. So it is important that students are kind to themselves. And so they recognise and call out a dreadful day, a dreadful week, a dreadful month, and say something truly embarrassing happened. Well, come home, sit in the equivalent of a beanbag and have a swear, have a blush, shake your head. But students really need to recognise that there's one truly profound truth of life, and that is, after a truly dreadful day, there is one guarantee. Tomorrow will be better. And my 4th positive one is create meaningful goals, and lots of them. What happens is perfectionists create a few, very few, impossible goals. And so what I try and get students to do is create a very, very long list of lots of small goals for the year. And they don't exist purely in one area of their lives. So not singular impossible goals, but learning goals and developmental goals. So I focus on scaffolding, lots of micro achievements in all areas of life for our students. And of course, my crucial mantra that I use for all my students is done is better than perfect. So what we can all do, I think, in recognising this is trying to understand, if you will, that high goals actually block any work being completed. So when students have a few high goals, they get overwhelmed and don't start. And of course, that's where perfectionism leads to procrastination, because the risk of failure is so high that the perfectionists simply don't start a task. They brood, they become paralysed, and they just don't begin. So enabling our students to construct small, manageable and doable tasks and just start, is the building block to success. And of course, it's the same with a PhD. The hardest sentence is the first one that we write every day. Also, I think the problem is not social media. That's like stating the problem is in the ocean because people drown. What we have to do, I think, is pick ruthlessly the parts of social media that enable support, care and amplify confidence. So I always say to students, join like-minded groups on Facebook. So for example, the wonderful OWLs, the older, wiser learners, are a fabulous group on Facebook, incredibly supportive. Or follow hashtag PhD chat so that our students have supportive friends doing a doctorate. And again, if anything negative emerges on social media, block, 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 block. And I think we have to remember that perfectionism is not about high standards. It's never been about high standards. It's about control. And the nature of work and life right now is that control is not possible. Life is not about control. Life is about agility and really enjoying the current moment every single day, the current moment today, because the future isn't promised to any of us. So the world is chaotic and so is the PhD. So I think the goal for our students confronting perfectionism are the two A's: be agile and be adaptable, not perfect and not frazzled. Thank you for listening to this STEPS training program on behalf of the Office of Graduate Research at Flinders University.